Khan, Shadow Brexit Secretary Sir Keir Starmer, increasingly putting on pressure, saying that whatever deal the government does must have the exact same benefits. Well, whether that means the exact same disbenefits, I'm not sure. And Emily Thornberry coming out on Friday and basically saying Labour will vote against any deal. So very often we talk about Brexit. We talk about the divisions within the Conservative Party, Boris v Theresa, Rees-Mogg on one side and Philip Hammond on the other. And we keep talking about Brexit as if it's purely a Tory thing. It isn't. The Labour Party's positioning on this and how they ultimately vote in the House of Commons is just as important. So high time we really did try to examine where Labour are going on this. And to help me through this, I've got Lance Price, former advisor to Tony Blair and author of The Spin Doctor's Diary and Where Power Lies. Lance, good morning to you.
Good morning, Nigel.
Are you surprised that Sadiq Khan has come out and said this at a week before the Labour Party conference?
I'm not surprised. It's worth noting that in his article in The Observer, he doesn't mention the Labour Party once. He talks about what's in the best interests of the country and what's in the best interests of London. So he really is putting his day job first, and his day job is to look after the interests of London. He's been elected Mayor of London to represent everybody, however they voted, either politically or in the Brexit referendum. But nor does it surprise me, you introduce it as a discussion about the Labour Party, even though Sadiq didn't talk about the Labour Party.
No, but he is the most senior executive the Labour Party have in this country, isn't he?
Yeah, he's the most senior elected person to an elected position with real power over real people's lives and budgets and so on that we have. Yeah, no, he's a very, very big figure in the Labour Party, and he deserves to be listened to.
Now, I've also noticed, increasingly over the last few weeks from Sir Keir Starmer and others, there is very, very big pressure now, is there not, on the Labour Party to effectively push for a second referendum?
Yes, it's certainly moving in that direction, and the Labour leadership, including Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell, have been careful to keep their options open. They've never completely ruled out a second referendum. They've simply said that they are not at the moment calling for one. And I think there are quite a lot of people in the Labour Party, and I would certainly put myself in that number, who think that Labour's position has been really all about tactics up until now and not about principle. And there's going to come a point pretty soon, because it's all coming to a head. We're about to hit crunch time in the negotiations when a momentously big decision about the future of Britain is going to be taken one way or the other by somebody or another. And I think that if it is patently, as I believe it will be, and I'm sure you disagree, but if it's patently not in the interest of the people of Britain, then the people of Britain have the right to say, whoa, hang on a minute.
Yeah, the argument, Lance, I would make is we're talking all of this in terms of economics and what our projections are for the future. There are some other arguments here about independence, controlling borders, etc. But at the moment, that is not what's being discussed out there. Now, I can see from Sadiq's point of view that London, quite a strong Remain area, still a strong Remain area. Electorally, I suspect that Sadiq Khan has taken very little risk at all. He has, of course, also had plunging poll ratings just recently after the recent spate of knife crime. But more broadly, around the country, if we look at that 2016 Brexit vote, and we then look at the Labour Party's, to many, surprisingly good performance in the 2017 general election, the estimates that I'm getting are that up to 5 million people who voted Brexit voted for Corbyn in 2017. If the Labour Party comes out of the conference next week effectively advocating a second referendum, or at some point shortly after that, doesn't this also potentially, and I'm thinking about South Wales, I'm thinking about the Midlands, I'm thinking about the north of England, doesn't this at some point, Lance Price, allow Conservatives in marginal seats to say, the Labour Party have betrayed your vote?
Well, that's what I mean about the debate being too much about tactics and not about principle. And I think it would be wrong of the Labour Party to make judgments on what's in the interest of the country based on marginal constituencies in any part of the country in a future general election. And, we can trade poll findings until the cows come home. there have been plenty of polls in Leave constituencies suggesting that people have started to change their minds, and that more people have been changing their minds in Labour constituencies than elsewhere. So I'm not sure that your argument, which may have held good in 2016 and 2017, I'm not sure it holds good now. And the thing about democracy is it's a fluid thing. People are allowed to change their minds. Nothing is set in stone. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a democracy if people weren't allowed to change their minds.
But we haven't even but we haven't even had Brexit yet.
Well, the key question is whether or not what we're faced with come March of next year is remotely close to what anybody voted for in 2016, and I don't believe it will be. And I'm absolutely convinced that what we are offered is something that was never even discussed as a possibility during the referendum campaign, when some people elected to Parliament and others who never quite made it to Parliament argued it was going to be such a simple process, and it clearly isn't. We go to
the Labour Party conference. I've made the point that there are millions of people who voted Labour who believe in Brexit, and particularly in those three regions I mentioned. Can the Labour Party discuss this at their conference without the impression of division being created?
I think they have to, whether or not it leads to some people recognising the obvious fact that the Labour Party is also divided on this. I think the electorate of this country are grown-ups. They recognise that Brexit and the whole business of our relationship with the European Union causes deep divisions in all parties. I mean, even the Liberal Democrats have had their Eurosceptics in the past.
Yep.
I don't think we need to be afraid of having a healthy debate about this if it gets us to the right position in the end. And I think the public and the electorate are more than happy to see parties debate these things, rather than what appears to be the case with the Labour Party running away from the difficult questions on this. They can't run away from them very much longer.
No, OK, decision time coming soon. Lance Price, thank you very much indeed for joining me. Well, that was Lance Price, former advisor to Tony Blair, saying the Labour Party needs to make its mind up, and he's right, it probably does need to make its mind up. Sadiq Khan, though, has sort of fired the first shot. He says we need a second referendum. Do you think he's right? If you think, yeah, let's ignore the first vote, let's have another go, then call me on 0345 6060 973, or maybe you think actually he's doing it because there's a lot of Remainers in London, it suits him for the upcoming mayoral elections given the recent plunges in his popularity, in which case text to 84850, or maybe you feel outraged that he is prepared to discard the vote that people took before Brexit has even been given a chance to work, in which case please tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC, and of course watch us on Facebook and comment there too. Let's go to Sherborne and speak to Malcolm, a new caller. Malcolm, good morning to you.
Good morning, Nigel. How are you?
I am very well indeed, and I'm not in the least bit surprised by what Sadiq Khan has said, and I think the Labour Party are moving rapidly towards endorsing a second referendum, and my view, Malcolm, is I don't think they understand the damage this is going to do them.
Well, first of all, Nigel, I just want to encourage you, don't fall into the trap of misleading people in the way that Sadiq and the Remainers are by talking about a second referendum. This is a third referendum.
Well, we had the one in 75.
I was old enough in 1976 to vote to go into the EU. Now, after 40 years, I and a majority of other people have decided that it wasn't good and it wasn't in our best interests when we had a second referendum. Now, I'm quite happy to have a third referendum in 10, 20 years' time if we change our mind. But for goodness sake, we've got to get out first, because we've decided in a democratic referendum 2 years ago that that's what we want to do.
Yeah, I mean, Malcolm, your point about it being a third referendum, you're right, but you have to be, I think, 61 years old to have participated in that 1975, as it was, referendum. Malcolm, I'm with you. This argument that we get, that in a democracy people can change their minds, well, of course they can, but we've voted for something. We have to see how it works for a bit first before there should be even any thought of a second referendum.
But this is why I think we must talk about a third one, because when I and others who were ancient and old enough to vote in the 76 one, we had no idea what the outcome was going to be. People said good things, bad things and so forth, but the reality of the future is always different to those who sort of pretend to have visionary sights. And the same is today. Nobody can tell what the future is. I happen to believe that the future will be very, very more positive in a number of ways as a result of unshackling ourselves from this undemocratic EU. But, only circumstances and the future that will determine whether I'm right or not.
Do you feel that those like Sadiq Khan, Malcolm, who are calling for a second referendum are effectively betraying the Brexit vote?
Oh, of course they are. And, they've all got their nose in the trough, haven't they? I mean, let's face it, back in 76 before, the size of the state and the proportion of the population that were dependent on the state, either by being employees or beneficiaries and so forth, was much, much lower. But now, Sadiq Khan, I mean, he gets a nice little earner, doesn't he, from being mayor of London?
Well, he has to work.
And a lot of other people too.
He does have to work hard too. Malcolm, I thank you. And I get on Twitter from Ant, Labour seem to have quickly forgotten that 2/3 of Labour constituencies voted Leave. In England and Wales, that is absolutely true. They have forgotten about it because the Labour Party's now run from North London. They're disconnected from all of this. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC, and it is 10:15.
This is LBC.
To make sense of today's biggest stories, it's never been more important to choose your words well. The Telegraph's digital subscription gives you unlimited access to expert opinion and insight from our award-winning writers. Subscribe today and get the full newspaper downloaded to your tablet or smartphone every morning, plus 24/7 breaking news coverage wherever you are. Free for 30 days at telegraph.co.uk/free trial, then just £3 per week. Cancel anytime. The Telegraph. Words are powerful. Choose them well. Terms and conditions apply.
If you or your loved one has mild Alzheimer's disease, St Pancras Clinical Research in London would like to hear from you. We're looking for people aged 50 plus with mild Alzheimer's to take part in a new clinical research study. All volunteers will be paid for their time and reasonable expenses. To find out more about the study and apply, visit stpancrasclinicalresearch.com. That's stpancrasclinicalresearch.com.
It's here, but not for long. Existing and new customers can get Sky's best ever offer on Sky Sports and Entertainment, both in stunning HD. Enjoy over 500 epic live football games and indulge in award-winning shows on Sky Atlantic, all for only £40 a month, saving you over £350. But this offer won't last long. Search sky.com. £20 standard setup for new Sky TV customers. Kit loaned at no cost. New 18-month minimum terms requires HDTV. Saving based on 18-month minimum contract versus £64 per month out of contract.
Calling all hard-working minicab drivers. Are you earning between £1,000 and £1,600 per week? No? Well, you could be, with Greyhound Cars' 18% commission rate. As part of a pooling group of 45 minicab companies in London, we have high demand and are now offering 18% commission deals for new drivers. We allocate each job within 5 seconds to the nearest available driver, so you spend less time travelling to jobs and more time earning money. Apply today at greyhoundcars.co.uk.
Ocean Credit Card.
If you're looking for a credit card with a credit limit up to £1,500, go to checkocean.co.uk and see in seconds if you'll be accepted for an Ocean credit card before you apply. Checking won't affect your credit rating, so it's a no-brainer. Find out if it's a yes. Go now to checkocean.co.uk. 39.9% APR representative variable. Intelligent Lending Limited is a credit broker. Capital One is the exclusive lender.
Checkocean.co.uk.
In cinemas this Wednesday, Mile 22 is a lean and mean action movie.
This is an Overwatch operation.
Loaded with edge-of-your-seat action.
Our team are no longer employees of the U.S. government. Their identities have been erased.
Mark Wahlberg takes you on 22 miles of pulse-pounding, bone-crunching, non-stop action.
Be careful. You be careful.
Mile 22.
Boom.
In cinemas Wednesday.
Are you ready?
Certificate 18.
Welcome to our Trust Ford dealership. I see you're interested in the all-new Ford Focus. Any questions?
Can it really park itself? Acres of boot space, eh? Is there room for a daisy?
Can I really drive it home today? We focus on whatever matters to you because, well, it matters to us. With Trust Ford now, you can drive away selected vehicles, including the all-new Ford Focus, from our dealerships the very same day.
Visit Trust Ford now.
Terms and conditions apply. Visit trustford.co.uk/now for details.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
In today's Observer, London Mayor Sadiq Khan calls for a second referendum. But that's not the language they use, folks. No. It's a new referendum. That's the language that he's using. And the Observer editorial say we must be given a fresh vote. as if somehow the referendum that they want us to have is not connected with the one that we had a couple of years ago. Sorry, folks, it doesn't wash. It's a rerun, isn't it? It's a, we don't accept the result. We think you're thick, ignorant and stupid, and we're going to try our very best to make you do it again. Now, Barry asks me, he says by text, I'm puzzled. Remainers went to court to prove that Parliament is sovereign and not a referendum. Why do they now want a referendum, having gone to such lengths to say decisions should be made in Parliament? Am I missing something? Well, Barry, the reason is, if Parliament completely overturned the referendum result, they know that politically that would be suicide. What they've got to do is, and it may come to, actually, they may decide that suspending Article 50 is a more likely method for them. But ultimately, they would have to get this overturned in a second referendum. Any alternative to that is a political impossibility. But look, the whole thing's an outrage, and we've seen it all before. We've seen Denmark be made to vote again. We've seen the Irish twice be made to vote again. This is the same game. The big bullying multinationals and big politics not accepting the will of the people, and it's just not good enough. Now, earlier on this morning, Andrew Castle interviewed Ian Duncan-Smith, former Tory leader. Here's what he had to say on a second referendum.
Well, I don't think there's any desire in any way for having another fractious referendum. The last referendum was experience enough, frankly. I don't think people want to go back through that process. And most of all, I don't see what this is all about. When you ask people a question and they vote in a democracy, you don't keep asking the same question again and again and again as to whether or not there should be a decision until they get what I think those who want to remain the right answer. And the right answer is what they gave, which they want to leave, and they want the government and Parliament to get on with it. The reality for us is we need to get the arrangement that best reflects ultimately what leaving means, which is, as has been said, to take control of our borders, our laws and our money. And I don't think that needs to constantly keep going back to the British people. So I think it would lead to a huge anger amongst many in the public who feel like they've been betrayed, that they were asked a question, and because the answer they gave wasn't satisfactory to what is called, essentially loosely, those of the establishment, who seem, by the way, to be driven mad by this vote because they can't understand what life is like outside the European Union. Well, that is not a reason to hold a referendum. The referendum was, should we leave? The answer is yes. The best deal that we can get is the deal we leave on.
That was Ian Duncan-Smith saying it's absolutely wrong to ask us to vote again. And not just the anger that Ian Duncan-Smith talked about, but my worry is a complete breakdown in our belief in the whole democratic process. Janet on Twitter says to me, I'm 56 years old. I have voted in every election since I was 18. If there is a second Brexit referendum, I will never vote again because I will never trust that my vote won't be overturned. And Janet, you are not alone. The number of people I've met in the last 6 months who said, we voted in that Brexit referendum, and unlike you, Janet, we've never voted in our lives before. If we don't get what we wanted, we'll never participate in politics again. This is about, actually, our entire system of government, the relationship between people and Parliament, and there's a lot at risk here. Ian is a new caller from Amsterdam. Good morning, Ian.
Good morning.
Good morning. So, do you think Sadiq Khan is right to say what he said, or is it actually just a huge insult to a country that voted freely and fairly for Brexit?
Well, the country did not vote freely and fairly because I was one of the probably 3 million Brits who live within the European Union was ineligible to vote in this undemocratic referendum.
Well, lots of it.
It was a 48 to 52% swing.
Ian, lots of Brits living in the European Union and some living in Australia were able to vote in the referendum. Why were
I wasn't.
Right.
Because I've lived in the European Union for 28 years. 7 years was the cut-off date.
Well, 15 I think it can be up to, can't
15, sorry.
Yeah, right, okay. So, yes, well, Ian, they're the rules. If you emigrate after 15 years...
I've not emigrated. I'm living within Europe, which is to me, one country.
Oh,
and
one flag, one president, one anthem. We should all stand to attention and be proud Europeans. Ian, that's fine if that's your view, but it's a very much minority view.
Yeah, but it's not our minority. If there's pushing 2 to 3 million of us who live within the European community who didn't get a vote, that vote, your referendum would have completely gone the opposite way. So my question still to David Cameron is, because nobody will listen to us, nobody. Yeah, there was even the State of Union speech in Strasbourg, Brussels during the week.
Yeah.
Not one single word. You sit there a few times a week. I would love you to ask the question, us Brits living here, may the Brits who live in Europe have a voice? Because we don't get anything, we can't vote general elections.
Ian, you've made your choice. You've gone to live in a different country. You know, you had the vote for 15 years, you've been there 28, you don't get the vote anymore, and I think there's just about zero prospect of that law changing. I mean, no party in any manifesto since I've been involved in politics has even considered it to be an option.
No, completely the wrong option. I left Britain because it was a third world country 30 years ago. It's going to become a fifth world country.
Is it? Right, OK, well, if that's how you feel, Ian, you're living in the right place, thank you, but that law, folks, is not going to change. In fact, many would argue that actually it's quite generous of our electoral system to allow people to have a vote up to 15 years after they've left. Mike is a new caller from Colville in Leicestershire. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, there.
So, I mean, when we think about Sadiq Khan, he's had a rotten time, hasn't he?
Yes,
you know, 100 homicide, knife crime homicides in London.
Yeah. Listen,
I mean, is he doing this purely for electoral benefit, do you think?
No, that's a red herring. Sadiq Khan is the mayor of London. London is the centre of financial services. He's got a very, very difficult thing to take into account because New York, Paris, Frankfurt, Singapore are all looking to get into that pie. Now, it's quite understandable that he wants to see his dominion in London well established to take on the future. And I think he's doing the right thing. But let me just say something else to you about UKIP.
About UKIP?
Yeah, UKIP. Now,
well, I tell you what, Mike. I tell you what, Mike. We will talk about UKIP because they've got a conference coming up too at the end of this week, and we will talk about UKIP and their role and where things are going. But you can give me a quick 20 seconds on UKIP, Mike.
Okay. UKIP need a new leader. Boris Johnson is not a one-nation Tory. He would be ideal to lead UKIP. That is the person that you should discuss at your next party.
All right, well, Mike, I'm not sure UKIP is a vote for him because amongst other things, Liberal Boris has advocated in the past, giving amnesties to illegal immigrants. But Mike, thank you for your suggestion. And Mike talked there a little bit about the City of London financial services. And my argument's always been, financial services, it's a global market, not a European market. It's a global market. And I strongly believe that EU regulation has led to much business leaving London. Reinsurance business heading off to Bermuda and elsewhere. Hedge fund business as a direct result of an EU directive heading off to Switzerland, Singapore and elsewhere. And I think actually for financial services, Brexit is a phenomenal opportunity for the City of London to be even bigger than it is today. That is my view. Please, come on, tell me I'm wrong. 0345 6060 973. Lawrence is calling from Colchester. Good morning, Lawrence.
Good morning, Sir Nigel.
Good to hear from you again, Lawrence. We've had you on before. So, Sadiq Khan, I mean, I'm pretty angry that he's done this, but I'm not surprised.
Well, a UKIP supporter myself and have been for 10 years. I think the guy's a joke, to be honest with you. Right. I don't think he'll become mayor in the next election. I mean,
I tell you what, Lawrence, who's going to beat him? Have you even ever heard of any of the Tory candidates?
No, but they've got bigger problems than the mayor of London.
Right, fair enough. Yeah. Well, that may well be true. That may well be true. So, what's your message to Sadiq Khan, Lawrence?
He, as a man, is a decent man. but I don't think he understands the democratic vote. Now, both my grandparents fought in the war, and I was proud of what they'd done. One got the George Medal.
Wow.
He was an RAP warden, and he saved a woman's life and her baby in Tilbury. Now, my other granddad was a prisoner of war. He was in the 51st Scottish Regiment.
Highland Division,
Yeah. Now, I'm so proud of them. I've got the medals and everything. Now, no one would ever have the chance for freedom of speech if the Nazis had won. That's common sense. Everybody knows.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, Lawrence. But so is somehow what Sadiq Khan is doing, in your view, against what people fought for?
Absolutely, 100%. And Nigel, I'm a peaceful guy, and all my friends and family are peaceful. But if this referendum gets turned over, which it won't, surely our system would come back and say something about it. I mean, the Queen would have to say something.
Well, Lawrence, we're not there yet. Thank you for your passion. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It's now 10:30 and time for the news with Philip Chrysikos.
Hong Kong and southern China are on red alert as strong winds and heavy rain from Typhoon Mangkhut make landfall. The strongest storm of the year so far has already killed at least 28 people in the Philippines. Former Conservative leader Ian Duncan Smith has told LBC he backs Theresa May as Prime Minister. There's no question of a leadership contest and there's no excuse for another Brexit referendum. It's in response to the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, calling on his Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn to back another vote. Ruth Davidson says she doesn't want to be the next leader of the Conservative Party. Currently leader of the Scottish Conservatives, she says she wouldn't want Theresa May's job for the sake of her relationship and mental health. LBC weather, warm and sunny, turning cloudy across the northwest by late afternoon, a high of 24 degrees.
This is LBC.
In cinemas this Wednesday, Mile 22 was a lean and mean action movie.
This is an Overwatch operation.
Loaded with edge-of-your-seat action.
You feeling calm, Alice? Not even a little. Are you?
I'm totally calm.
That's because you're mentally unstable.
Thank you.
Mark Wahlberg is back to his all-action best.
You're chaos. I think I might be worse.
We can do this all day. Does your wife know you think about me all day?
Mile 22.
Boom.
In cinemas Wednesday.
Are you ready?
Certificate 18.
At Thatcher, we like to keep things simple, like the Sandero Stepway, our super tough mini SUV from just $9,595. See? Simple. Apart from the name, Sandero Stepway. Sounds like a lolly for builders. Although it has been hot recently. The Sandero Stepway, the mini SUV from Thatcher, Auto Trader's best value brand from just $9,595. Only at participating dealers. Visit Thatcher.co.uk to find out more. Thatcher, you do the maths.
Universal Credit is opening up work for thousands of people across the country, providing support for people out of work or who start on a low income. It can top up your wages when you start a new job, making sure it's worth your while. And if your wages change, your Universal Credit changes automatically, giving you one less thing to worry about. So now it pays to take whatever job opportunities you find. Universal Credit, opening up work. Find out more at gov.uk/openingupwork.
This is the sound of Claire's spending spree at the Bullring Shopping Centre, Birmingham. Only a beep away from a Holiday Inn hotel. What are you doing this weekend? It all begins at holidayinn.com.
Tonight on Gold.
Prepare to be amazed.
It's a Gold special offer. Delivered right to your home.
Lucky baby beggar.
Part of the Sir David Jason month. Series 3 of Still Open All Hours. Tonight at 7 on the Gold TV channel. Available on Sky, Virgin and BT.
Ah, you're dreaming about your next holiday, not buying a new boiler. We're with you. That's why all our new boilers come with 2 years interest-free credit, expert installation and a 5-year British Gas warranty. So now you can have a new boiler and a trip to your dream destination. Search British Gas New Boiler. Credit subject to status, conditions apply.
The Dacia Sandero Stepway from Auto Trader's best value brand. All the style of an SUV with the practicality of a family hatchback. No wonder they call it small but mighty. Test drive one today at Dacia Retail Group. Find your nearest dealer at daciaretail.co.uk.
Based on Sarah Waters' best-selling novel and from the Academy Award-nominated director of Room, critics are calling The Little Stranger a spine-tingling drama.
A long time ago, was this child here?
Susan died before I was born.
Deliciously dark and mysterious.
Will be explained.
How innocent you are.
Superb. One of the year's finest films. 5 stars.
What happened next is a mystery to me.
The Little Stranger. In cinemas Friday.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
Sadiq Khan calls for a second referendum, and I'm not happy, but I'm not surprised. Before we go back to that, Theresa May, and this is a big interview she's done with Panorama for the BBC, and she said she gets irritated by the ongoing speculation over her position as Prime Minister. The interview is going to mark the 6th-month countdown to Brexit, and she said the debate should be about the country's future rather than her own.
Look, I said what I said to my party. Throughout my time in public service, it has been about service. As a councillor, as an MP, as a Home Secretary, and now as Prime Minister. But actually, this is where I get a little bit irritated. This debate is not about my future. This debate is about the future of the people of the UK and the future of the United Kingdom. That's what I'm focused on, and that's what I think we should all be focused on. It's ensuring that we get that good deal from the European Union, which is good for people in the UK, wherever they live in the UK. That's what's important for us, and that's what I'm focusing on. It's the future of people in the UK that matters.
Well, it is, but it's also about getting the Brexit they voted for, I would have thought. Now, she was also quizzed about Boris Johnson's comments about the Chequers deal being like strapping a suicide vest around the UK.
Well, first of all, I have to say I think that choice of language was completely inappropriate. I've been Home Secretary, was Home Secretary for 6 years and as Prime Minister for 2 years now. I think using language like that was not right, and it's not language I would have used. But let's look at the argument about the issue in relation to Northern Ireland. The people of Northern Ireland deserve to be listened to in these negotiations by the UK government as people elsewhere in this country. I want to ensure that as we go forward, we have that strong union, that Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom, and it's important that we deliver for the people of Northern Ireland. They don't want a hard border between Northern Ireland and Ireland. The only proposal that's been put forward that delivers on them not having that hard border and ensures that we don't carve up the United Kingdom is the Chequers plan.
And there's the clue to it all. The hard border. The Barnier line about the hard border, which she has bought into, and in her attempt to pacify Monsieur Barnier, she's prepared to keep us in full regulatory alignment with all European rules, old ones and new ones, and to keep us under the European Court of Justice. And this has been Barnier's great win in these negotiations, is that he's forced the Prime Minister into that position. At the top of the hour, we'll talk about a new positive way forward on this. Now, Sadiq Khan. Yes, Craig very helpfully sends me by text. During the referendum, Sadiq Khan said, if we as a country decide to quit, then we're out for good. There's no going back. That's right, Sadiq Khan. And this morning, Sadiq Khan has been on with Andrew Marr, and he's been rather caught out by an LBC interview he did after the referendum.
The British public should have a say on the outcome of the negotiations, including what the Prime Minister negotiates with the EU, plus the option of staying in the EU.
Let's just remind ourselves what you said after the first referendum on LBC.
I think the problem for those of us who are saying to the British public there should be a second referendum it will lead to even more cynicism. It will lead to the British public saying, hold on a sec, these were the rules of the game. We voted in record numbers, and now you're ignoring us. And I've got grievances about the way the campaign was conducted, but the reality is, Gillian, the British public had a say. They voted, and they voted to leave. And my job as the Mayor of London is to heal some of the rifts that were created during the campaign and make sure our city carries on being the greatest city in the world. And I've done that. So one of the things I could have done over the last 2 years and 3 months is cross my arms and watch it all fail and say, I told you so. I've met David Davis 8 times. Met the Prime Minister, the Chancellor.
But you said then, no going back. It would create cynicism and create rifts. What's changed?
And it's really important that this is not a rerun of the referendum, but the British public having a say for the first time on the outcome.
But it is a second referendum.
Well,
that's what it is.
Yeah, but when the campaign was taking place, Boris Johnson said we could leave the EU and have access to the single market. Untrue. Liam Fox said this would be the easiest trade deal to be done in history. Untrue. Nobody said there'd be jobs being lost.
Oh, yes, they did. Oh, yes, they did. Actually, Sadiq, all your mates on the Remain side told us 500,000 jobs lost quickly. That was the Chancellor of the Exchequer. Britain going down the tubes. The car makers leaving. Foreign investment stopping. Plagues of black locusts descending. Everyone told us if we vote to leave, it'll be an economic disaster. So please don't pull that one. I just think, how on earth can you expect people to have trust in our political class when they behave as Sadiq Khan is behaving? I think the whole thing is appalling. And once again, they use economics. They always use economics. Do you remember, if we don't join the euro, it'll be a disaster for Britain? Well, thank God we didn't listen to them then. Let's go to Roger, who's calling from Barmouth. Good morning, Roger.
Good morning, Mr. Farage. Just a quick one. Like a lot of people, I voted for out.
Yep.
Right? Now, all I saw when the campaign was being run was a big red bus with 390 million a week for the National Health.
Yeah.
And 40 billion a year we're not going to pay them.
Yep.
Now, that was a lie. It was a plain lie, wasn't it? Because next March, we're still going to go on paying them, and the National Health isn't going to get
well,
their
actually,
money.
but National Health, I mean, in fact, if you listen to what Mrs May's been saying...
That was what it was all about.
Yeah.
And also...
Well, actually, no, Roger, that was a tiddly part of what it was about.
It's not. That was what
Well,
was
how
on
do you
that
put...
bus. Have you sold the bus?
If they put 220 million a week on, no one would have known the difference, and it would have been a very... But the idea of not giving away lots of money, Roger, was an important part of the referendum.
But it was that 40 billion a year.
It's 10 billion a year. 10 billion a year.
And also...
No, Roger, stop. 10 billion a year.
It was 40. It was on 390.
Well, I'm afraid your mind is playing tricks with you this Sunday morning.
Have you still... I mean, I'm not being funny. And also, I mean, a lot of this wasn't told us about passports, borders...
Yes, Roger, how many times? How many times? Every single TV interview I did in the 18-month run-up to that referendum, I paraded my passport on television and said, I want to get rid of this, and the words European Union, we want to get back proper border controls. Roger, I find it difficult to believe that you were a Leave voter. I really do.
I was a Leave voter, and now I don't know. You know, after all, there's a lot of people like me think, oh my God. I mean, at the time, it was all the people coming in, the people coming in the country, and that would stop. That's it. That was what we were told. We're going to have our own border at Dover, and that's it. It stops. Well, it won't, will it? I mean, it's not. That was another thing.
I don't remember a single... Roger, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. But,
well, I'm sorry.
I'm really sorry, Roger, but every single one... Every single fact you've given me this morning, Roger, is wrong. Plain wrong. And even on the immigration issue, on which I would have been seen to be tougher than some of the people involved with the Leave campaign, I never argued for putting barbed wire on the beaches at Dover and pulling up the drawbridge. All I argued was we should control who's coming over the drawbridge.
That's what everybody wanted, but will we be able to do that?
Of course. As a sovereign country, we can do it. One of the frustrations.
How many years does it take for this to take place?
It should be done by now. And if we had a proper Prime Minister,
it's not, is it?
No, we got an absolutely.
And next March is the cut-off line. So
we've got a dreadful Prime Minister.
That next March everything stops. We don't pay them no more into the euro.
I wouldn't pay them a single penny piece after next March.
We've still got to pay it, haven't we?
No, we haven't got to pay anything.
But
our Prime Minister has agreed to, and that's a very different thing. Roger, I thank you. You're having a little bit of trouble remembering some of the things that were said in that campaign. On Facebook, David says, they said it was one vote, never to be done again. The vote of a lifetime. Why don't these non-democratic Remainers understand about that? Kev says, if we have another vote, democracy is dead in this country. I'm not sure I would ever vote again just to be ignored. Kev, that I picked up, certainly when I was in the West Country, over the summer period, meeting some of those communities in North Cornwall. People say, look, we haven't voted for 30 years, Nigel, but we went out and voted in this because it really, we felt mattered to our community. And if we get ignored, we'll never, ever vote again. So it's not just about anger, it's about breakdown in trust in our entire system. And what Sadiq Khan is doing, he said in that earlier interview on LBC, it would lead to increased cynicism if people wanted a second referendum. Well, you bet your life this morning, Sadiq Khan, there is a lot of increased cynicism. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC, and it's 10:45.
LBC at the weekend. Majid Nawaz.
The Labour Party today, being institutionally racist, as Chuka Umunna has admitted, and if you had the moral backbone that you claim to have, you would defect from the Labour Party and join all other centrists in this country for the rest of us politically homeless people to be able to vote for.
Leading Britain's conversation, Majid Nawaz. Today from 12 on LBC.
Join Clive Bull every Sunday evening from 6 for the Consumer Hour on LBC.
Joe in Bromley says if you're doing a hotel booking, it's made online, but there's an error found when checking in at the hotel. Which organisation is responsible?
So your claim there lies with who you booked with, so it's the booking company. However, if you are out there, I would talk to the hotel directly.
The Consumer Hour on LBC with Which. Impartial advice, investigations and reviews. Keep questioning.
In cinemas this Wednesday, Mile 22 was a lean and mean action movie.
This is an Overwatch operation.
Loaded with edge-of-your-seat action.
Our team are no longer employees of the U.S. government. Their identities have been erased.
Mark Wahlberg takes you on 22 miles of pulse-pounding, bone-crunching, non-stop action.
Be careful. You be careful.
Mile 22.
Boom.
In cinemas Wednesday.
Are you ready?
Certificate 18.
Did you know you can get up to £2,000 towards childcare costs? For each of your kids under 12. Which we think is pretty awesome.
Don't miss out on government help towards your childcare costs. Get up to £2,000 per child per year. Find out more at childcarechoices.gov.uk. Subject to eligibility.
Britain has many noble traditions. The changing of the guard, tea drinking and bog snorkelling. But the tradition that embodies our very essence is undoubtedly the Great British Queue. However, our national pastime is under threat from the fiendishly simple SO app, which will do away with queuing for fuel altogether, meaning one can pay for fuel from the comfort of one's own motor vehicle. One can also collect club card points whilst doing so, as if the end of queuing wasn't enough.
The new SO app. Say cheerio to queuing, Britain. For more information, visit so.co.uk. SO app available at participating SO sites only for fuel purchases under £100.
This is the sound of the Birch family kayaking down the River Dee, North Wales. Only a skimming stone's throw away from a Holiday Inn hotel. What are you doing this weekend? It all begins at holidayinn.com.
The Volkswagen Transporter from just £239 per month on contract hire now comes with 2 free services. So instead of spending your money on this, you could spend it on this. Or even this. Incredible offers to help your business thrive. Search Volkswagen Transporter to find out more. Volkswagen Commercial Vehicles. Working with you. Business users only, excluding VAT at 20%, over 36 months. £717 initial rental. T's and C's apply. No ownership. Until the 30th of September 2018. Volkswagen Finance.
To make sense of today's biggest stories, it's never been more important to choose your words well. The Telegraph's digital subscription gives you unlimited access to expert opinion and insight from our award-winning writers. Subscribe today and get the full newspaper downloaded to your tablet or smartphone every morning, plus 24/7 breaking news coverage wherever you are. Free for 30 days at telegraph.co.uk/free trial, then just £3 per week. Cancel anytime. The Telegraph. Words are powerful. Choose them well. Terms and conditions apply.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC, The Nigel Farage Show.
In the aftermath of the referendum vote to leave, Sadiq Khan said this on LBC.
I think the problem for those of us who are saying to the British public there should be a second referendum, it will lead to even more cynicism. It will lead to the British public saying, hold on a sec, these were the rules of the game, we voted in record numbers, and now you're ignoring us.
And today, front page of The Observer, Sadiq Khan, give Britain a new referendum on Brexit. And people wonder why increasingly politicians are distrusted, disliked or even hated in some quarters. And somebody else that I can't stand is the Governor of the Bank of England, Mark Carney, who of course this week, and if you listen to my midweek show you'll know I've been talking about this week his term has been extended by our Chancellor Philip Hammond, despite the fact he's an out-and-out Remainer without an ounce of neutrality about him, telling us this week, advising the Cabinet that a no-deal Brexit could see a 35% drop in house prices. I'm surprised he put the figure as low as that. And just to really cheer me up this morning, news reports that Mark Carney is set to gain British citizenship in the coming months, potentially opening the way for him to be given a peerage and enter the House of Lords. Who will rid us of this turbulent Canadian? Looks like he's here forever and here to stay. Now, Linda is a new caller to this show, and she lives in one of the great tourist attractions, tourist sites in the whole world. In fact, people fly, Linda, thousands of miles from Russia just to see your 132-metre spa in Salisbury, don't they? Hello?
No, they do, yes, they do.
Good morning, Linda.
But I wanted to cover, it's very nice to talk to you, Nigel.
Good, well, thank you.
I have emailed you, but I never knew whether you got them or not. I just wanted to say that if we go back in history, and I'm talking not World War I or II, we go right back to kings and queens when all they fought for was independence and sovereignty.
Yep.
We come forward and we changed our kings and queens to Parliament, who were supposed to be acting for the people.
Yes.
And we now come forward and we have 2 wars, and people voted for the common market, but we eventually somehow ended up in the EU. And I just feel that is it possible, Nigel, that if we did actually come out, it's not just the big businesses that were going to lose money at the top end of the markets, but also some of the MPs that were lining their pockets for gaining and staying into this country, and not even considering. It's got nothing to do with this country. It's all to do with money.
Well,
and who's going to benefit from it?
Yeah, I mean,
I will say is
all through history, Linda,
to this country is small businesses.
All through history, Linda, you know,
Exactly.
many of these great political debates are about money, and sort of power is almost a subset of that, whether it's, you know, the Corn Laws or whatever we discuss, slavery even. Very often, you know, it's big money that wants to keep the status quo exactly as it is. Your point about going back to the fact that we had kings and queens and then we went for a parliamentary system. Tony Benn used to argue that as an MP, the people trusted you for a period of time to look after not just their interests in a representative democracy, but the country's interests. And Ben's argument was that for Parliament to have given away this amount of sovereignty, actually it wasn't ever within their right to do so. And something really very bad happened when we were falsely sold the common market back in
the other thing I wanted to say was that since we've joined the EU, we have actually had to sell everything we have as a rich country, like our water or electric. etc., etc. And we were a very rich country before we went into the common market.
Yeah.
And I do feel that things go round in circles, and as I said, the small businesses and the middle class of this country are small businesses, and they're the backbone to this country. Things go round in circles.
Okay.
And if we do come out, you can be assured that places like Birmingham will actually start their small businesses again.
Linda, we are going to come out.
Will work.
We are going to come out, because whatever your Sadiq Khans or others try to do, even if they force us into a second referendum, the Leavers will win by a bigger majority. I'm certain of that. The bloody-minded decentness of the British people will come out. Thank you, Linda, for that. Philip in Whiteleaf says, if the Remainers don't implement the result of the referendum, why should we recognise the legitimacy of any vote? Also, we never had a vote to join the EU. Philip, you're right. People forget that point. We were taken in to the European Union by the Heath government, and we were given a referendum subsequently on whether we should leave. George is another new caller to this show, and he lives in Stoke-on-Trent. Good morning, George.
Good morning, Nigel. How are you?
I'm well. So how do you feel about Sadiq Khan telling us that there can't be a second referendum? It would lead to massively increased cynicism, and then today saying we should have one.
My only reaction to it is a lack of surprise, Nigel.
Yeah, same here. Same here.
You know, he's never wanted. One of the things I was going to comment was the one thing the establishment fear most of than anything else is democracy.
Do you mean the great? Do you mean the great unwashed, George?
Exactly. Yes, they are absolutely terrified of it. They've got their little places, and the other thing I've come to realise over the years, and I'm 76 now, is the fact that governments don't govern.
Right.
Certainly not for the benefit of the people of the country, anyway. You know, but the thing about it is this: that you can go on having referendums as long as you want to get the answer you want. As you commented earlier, that happened in Ireland, for example.
Oh yeah, twice.
The Labour Party, the Conservative Party, at the last general election said, whatever happens, we are going to back the decision of the people.
You see, George,
and suddenly,
George,
both
that point,
parties are backtracking.
That point, George, is very powerful. Yeah. And it's this: we didn't just vote to leave in a referendum. We voted in a subsequent general election on manifestos where both Labour and Tory said, vote for us. And this is a complete betrayal of the democratic process. It's a betrayal of two votes, George, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when the people who are against it start talking about percentages, I just checked before I just spoke to you, is the percentage of people who voted for the two parties was 90-odd%.
Certainly,
so that means 90-odd% were saying yes.
It was certainly over 85%, George. It was. Yeah. George, I thank you for your call and thank you for listening. Got time for one more quick call on this subject. Adam is a new caller from Edgware. Adam, good morning.
Good morning, Nigel. How are you?
I am well. So Sadiq has done this. He is trying, whatever Lance Price said earlier, to pressure the Labour Party's formal position to be for a second referendum. How do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I feel that it's going to be a very strange situation where you've got a leadership, basically Jeremy Corbyn, John McDonnell, who have always been Benites and have always been anti-Europe, who suddenly accept this, knowing full well that they don't really believe in it at all. I'd be very surprised if this actually goes through, if they actually support a second vote.
But the thing is, Adam, and you're quite right, you know, McDonnell and Corbyn, very much Benites, very much opposed to the European project, particularly on the grounds of democracy and a lack of democracy within it.
Absolutely, yeah.
But on this subject, Adam, they are hostages to their parliamentary party, most of whom are Blairite and are completely in love with the European project. And oddly, Momentum, those on the sort of Trotskyite left, they too seem to see the European Union as being this wonderful prototype for a new form of global government. So Corbyn and McDonnell are massively outnumbered on this. Now, you know, Kate Hoey, in an interview in the Telegraph yesterday, said, well, actually, she thinks they'll hold the line. But can they?
Well, the thing is, the way I see it is that there will be probably, the Parliamentary Labour Party will probably force them. And obviously, the large section of Momentum, it's actually very confusing, actually, because if the large section of Momentum, that's the honest momentum are really there to support Corbyn and McDonald. That's how they got him into power.
Yes.
But for them to take the view that basically we need to be pro-European, I'm just thinking, what would Tony Benn say? He'll probably say something Adam, it should be absolutely honest. It's democracy.
Good try. No, it's absolutely bizarre, but you've got this on the hard left. Some of the hard left are Stalinists and believe in the nation, and the Trotskyites believe in global revolution. Adam, I thank you. Tony says the Labour Party are about to commit political suicide. Tony, I agree. I don't think they realise what damage a second referendum, if they go for it, will do them in South Wales, the Midlands and the North. So you've got Sadiq writing this article this morning, but also Ian Duncan Smith wrote something too in the Sunday Express. The former Tory leader has said that the Prime Minister needs to ditch Chequers and we need to reunite, a positive word, reunite the country. How would you bring Remainers and Brexiteers together? Would a global free trade deal unite us all? Call 0345 6060 973. Maybe think it's impossible because the whole thing's too divisive, in which case text to 84850. Can you think of another way of bringing the country together? If you can, tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. Actually, I think a free trade deal with the European Union would unite the country, and it's possible. It can be done.
On your radio, on your phone, and here.
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 11 o'clock, at least 40 people, mostly gold miners, are feared trapped in a landslide in the Philippines triggered by Typhoon Mangkhut. It's already killed 28 people in the country, with strong winds and torrential rains triggering those landslips. Typhoon Mangkhut has now made landfall in South China's Guangdong province and also in Hong Kong, from where LBC's correspondent Linda Kennedy describes the situation there.
It's hard to stand, and you've got to be ready to duck at any moment, because flying debris is pretty much the big danger of this typhoon. But over on Hong Kong Island, which is where most of the city's skyscrapers are, many windows have been blown out. That means contents of rooms have been sucked out into midair and then come crashing down on the pavements below.
There's renewed pressure on Theresa May and now Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn to back a second Brexit referendum by the Mayor of London. Writing in the Observer newspaper, Labour's Sadiq Khan says the UK faces either a bad deal or a no deal. But his demand is being rubbished by former Conservative leader Ian Duncan Smith, who's told LBC there is no excuse for another Brexit vote.
The establishment can't understand what life is like outside the European Union. That is not a reason to hold a referendum. The referendum was, should we leave? The answer is yes. The best deal that we can get is the deal we leave on.
And Nigel will be leading Britain's conversation on Ian Duncan Smith's comments next. It says the Times newspaper columnist Matthew Paris has given LBC his rating on Theresa May leaving over the next 6 months.
If she gets through what's called the meaningful vote, when the British government presents to MPs right at the end of this year, then I think she's safe right through until we actually leave the European Union on the 29th of March next year.
A US Border Patrol agent has been arrested on suspicion of killing 4 women in Texas. He was picked up after a 5th who had been abducted managed to escape and tell police. A man's been arrested after a traffic warden was dragged from his moped and stamped on in Birmingham. Police are looking for 5 other people. The leader of the Scottish Conservative Party says she's not interested in Theresa May's job for the sake of her mental health and relationship. Ruth Davidson is also rubbishing claims of perhaps taking a peerage or moving to England to become an MP. Amazon has reportedly paid Elizabeth Hurley's vet bills after her Labrador was run over by a delivery driver. The actress's sister says Amazon initially refused to pay but now has 9 months on. Actor Dudley Sutton has died at the age of 85. Known for playing Tinker Dill in the TV series Lovejoy, he had been suffering from cancer and died surrounded by his family at a hospice in London. LBC weather, warm and sunny, turning cloudy across the northwest by late afternoon, a high of 24 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Philip Chrysikos.
Add in a splash of autumn colour. At B&Q, you can get Dulux 5 litre standard coloured emulsion at our great low price of just £20. And there's over 40 colours to choose from. So for low prices on paint and essentials, you can do it when you B&Q it.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
Well, all this negativity, all this increased cynicism that Sadiq Khan was talking about, if people called for a second referendum, which he himself has now done, all this anger, people saying they'll never ever vote again. Increasingly we're told that we are a divided country. Well, quite how a second referendum would help that process, I simply and utterly don't know. But is there possibly a positive way through the middle of all of this? And I say this in the context of what Ian Duncan Smith MP, remember former Conservative Party leader, Ian Duncan Smith this morning in the Express has written a piece. And what he said basically is the Prime Minister should ditch her plan, namely the Chequers proposals, unite the country and propose a new free trade deal in Salzburg. So Salzburg this week, there is an informal get-together of the heads of all the European Union countries. And really what Duncan Smith is saying is she's got to say, look, Chequers is over. We're going to make a fresh start on all of this. And this indeed is what the Jacob Rees-Moggs and others have been urging her. We're going to make a fresh start on all of this. Let's go for a free trade deal. Let me ask you folks, you're out there, you're a Remainer, you were a Remainer, you're a Leaver, or you were a Leaver. Would a simple free trade deal with the European Union unite the country? Now, what does that mean? Well, it would mean that on goods, for certain, there would be no tariffs. Of course, we'd have to respect each other's standards, but we'd get round all the nonsense of free movement because, a Canada-style trade deal, and kind of we're all calling it Canada Plus because you add the bit on, which is there'll be a deal on services too. You wouldn't have the problem of free movement, you wouldn't have the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice, and we'd be out of everything. I think the biggest problem here is, as a country, we've spent 30 or 40 years trying to opt out of bits of the European Union, and now Mrs May, since her Florence speech, wants to opt back into bits of the European Union, despite the fact that actually we're leaving. So just a good, simple, clean break and a free trade deal without the added politics. Would that, in your opinion, folks, unite the country? Tell me, does a free trade deal unite Britain? Call 0345 60 60 973. Or am I living in fantasy land? Is it impossible to unite these different political philosophies in this country? If that's how you feel, text to 84850. And please, any other suggestions you've got, how we might be able to unite people, then tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC, and similarly you can comment on Facebook too. Now, Ian Duncan Smith has written this, and I was over this week in Strasbourg for a few days, and I was actually quite struck that Jean-Claude Juncker, in his State of the Union speech, I thought his attitude towards Brexit was a lot more positive than I'd heard it before. He was saying, there's a trade deal to be done. And isn't it funny? I mean, ever since 2001, I sat with Neil Kinnock on the Today programme doing a head-to-head in 2001, and Kinnock said, if what Nigel wants is to leave the European Union and just have a trade deal, that would be fine with the European Union, but in his view, a terrible political loss. And frankly, when I think back to the 25 years I've been involved in all of this, from even before UKIP was actually set up as a party, I mean, all I've always said is I want free trade and friendship with our European neighbours, not political linkage. And I now reckon there's an appetite in Brussels for this. Even Dominic Raab, the Brexit secretary, actually being quite bullish about things. He had an extended phone call on Friday with Monsieur Barnier. And Raab is saying that he's optimistic that within 6 to 8 weeks something can be sorted out. Barnier, a little more cautious, but even he said it'd been a useful dialogue. There are still substantive differences, Irish border, protections for regional specialities on foods, but it does feel as though we are getting closer. And I also think that German industry German industry will not want the UK to leave and for there to be a tariff regime in this country against their motor cars. Remember, they sell us more than we sell them. Can we unite the country around something? And you know what? If the Prime Minister could unite the country, suddenly all those difficulties with parliamentary arithmetic in Westminster would get easier because, hey, that's the way that it works. I'm trying to be positive, folks. Is there a way forwards? David is a new caller from Toddington in Bedfordshire. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Nigel.
Right, so is there? Is it impossible to unite the country around the Brexit process, David, or is a simple free trade deal, sort of Canada Plus deal, is that the way to do it?
I don't think it's going to work, Nigel. Given the negotiations we've had so far,
right?
Unless we get somebody other than Theresa May, I don't have faith that we're going to be able to do any deal with the European Union.
Well, I mean, she could. I mean, let's suppose the European Union were to agree to her Chequers plan. Now, if that was the case and she then comes back to the House of Commons, we now know from what Emily Thornberry said on Friday that Labour will simply vote against. Do you know why, David? Because they want a general election and they see political advantage. Would the prospect of the government losing and an impending general election, or, God forbid, maybe her only other way out would be to offer a second referendum, would that make Jacob Rees-Mogg and others come into line and do the bidding of the party, or would they continue to oppose Chequers on principle? And my guess, David, and you know, those of us old enough to remember Maastricht saw all these debates before, but my guess is if she sticks to Chequers, not only will she be in major trouble and be ousted as Tory leader, but we may well finish up with a general election or even a second referendum.
I think it's a good chance that we will end up with a second referendum or a general election. I think it's going to be disastrous if we have Corbyn in power. But I don't see any strength in anybody in the Tory party to stand up to her.
But it's just, you know, in terms of a policy solution, David, would you agree that a Canada Plus style deal, we go and make a big offer to the EU and say, right, let's do this, guys, let's crack on. Do you know what, David? I think they'd say yes.
If they said yes, we would have to have somebody strong from the UK put in our argument. Are we going to get somebody strong? Are we going to get you, Nigel?
Oh, well, I don't think the Conservative Party are going to have me, David. They will always see me as an outsider, and I haven't got a problem with that. David, I get the point. It's not easy. Thank you. We're going to go to Westerham in Kent and speak to Theresa, a new caller to this show. Good morning.
Hello, Nigel. How are you?
I am well. Is it possible, Theresa, that we could unite people around the concept of a free trade deal? We would, knock into a hat the arguments about it being damaging for exports because tariffs wouldn't be there, and we'd also satisfy the leavers because we wouldn't have free movement of people or any say of the European Court. I mean, surely it could work.
I think it should be a clear break away.
Yeah.
Because to be quite honest, I really Theresa May, there is no way that she really wants to move away in any shape or form away from the European Union, and we all know what they're made up of.
But I mean, the break, Theresa. I want a completely clear break politically, in terms of decision making. Yeah. But I'm more than happy for us to have great relations with our European neighbours in terms of trade and reciprocity of students and all of those things. I mean,
And what about immigration?
Well, of course. I mean, surely everybody must recognise that the issue that won the referendum for the Leave side was the desire to stop free movement. And if you have a simple free trade deal, I mean, Canada signed this deal with the European Union. There is absolutely no provision within there for workers or people to freely move from the EU to Canada or vice versa. So I think this would bring people together.
And is Canada paying a lot of money into the EU?
Nothing. Canada pay no money. Canada don't have free movement. Canada do not have the oversight of the European Court. They just have, on goods, a tariff-free basis on which they can buy and sell stuff from each other. It kind of makes sense, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I don't really think it would be like that. I think Europe is out to get the UK.
Right.
I think that somehow with Merkel, the type she is, it's like a going back a long way. She's still got, well, who knows what story she was told when she was young about the UK, the English, yeah? And
Well,
I still think it's still there.
Right. You may be right. Theresa,
I don't care if it's being honest. I just think that the whole of Brussels are a load of absolute...
It's Sunday morning, Theresa.
I know. I know. But to me, no. I would trust what you say.
Okay, well...
Because you're the only one that I do trust. You and our Jacob too.
Well, I want nothing to do with this political project whatsoever. I don't want to opt back in, as the Prime Minister does, to any of it. But when it comes to trade and friendship, Theresa, we should be very happy with that. Thank you very much indeed for your call. It's there. This free trade deal is possible. Giscard d'Estaing told me 10 years ago. Oh, but you'll be relegated, Nigel. You'll just have a free trade deal. You'll miss out on the political opportunities offered by Europe. Good. I don't want any of them. I never ever did. Let's be relegated. Let's not be part of this massive edifice, this new European state. Let's just have a trade deal. Here we are, positive suggestion on Twitter. It is possible to unite both Leavers and Remainers simply by talking about Tony Blair. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC, and it's 11:15.
This is LBC.
Keep cool this summer with an air conditioning refresh from Ford Motorcraft and a 30-point Ford e-check for $29.99. That's the recommended retail price at participating dealers. Book now at ford.co.uk.
Terms, conditions and exclusions apply. See ford.co.uk/motorcraft for more information.
Whoever they want to be in life, give them a great start with WellKid. Carefully balanced, great-tasting vitamins and minerals for 4 to 12-year-olds, with specific nutrients such as zinc and vitamin D, which support normal immune system function. The WellKid range from Vitabiotics, from Boots, pharmacies and vitabiotics.com.
To make sense of today's biggest stories, it's never been more important to choose your words well. The Telegraph's digital subscription gives you unlimited access to expert opinion and insight from our award-winning writers. Subscribe today and get the full newspaper downloaded to your tablet or smartphone every morning, plus 24/7 breaking news coverage wherever you are. Free for 30 days at telegraph.co.uk/free trial, then just £3 per week. Cancel anytime. The Telegraph. Words are powerful. Choose them well. Terms and conditions apply.
The Dacia Sandero Stepway, from Auto Trader's best value brand. All the style of an SUV with the practicality of a family hatchback. No wonder they call it small but mighty. Test drive one today at Dacia Retail Group. Find your nearest dealer at daciaretail.co.uk.
Visit swaleheating.com and put your boiler in safe hands with Swale Heating's highly qualified engineers. Rely on us to keep you warm.
Cruise, voyage, boat, Queen Mary 2, snacks, afternoon tea, party, gala ball, upgrade, complimentary upgrade, a voyage with Cunard. It doesn't just sound better. Discover an upgrade beyond all expectations at cunard.com. Selected dates and staterooms. Conditions apply. Atoll protected.
Get the kettle on, put the TV on, turn the lights on, turn the lights off, put the dinner on, turn the heating up, turn the heating down. Crikey! We use so much energy every day, it's exhausting and expensive. But with a smart meter, you get an expected average saving of 354 kilowatt hours. That might not mean much, but if we all got one, we could save the same amount of energy as it takes to power Aberdeen, Cardiff and Manchester for a year. Save your energy for powering Britain. Contact your energy supplier about getting your free smart meter from the Campaign for a Smarter Britain.
Based on BEI's expected average annual savings of 2%, participating suppliers and eligible customers only. Savings possible by measuring energy usage and reducing wastage.
Get ready for summer with a Ford Summer Check for just $29.99. That's the recommended retail price at participating dealers. Book now at ford.co.uk.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
Can we unite Leavers and Remainers? Can we have a more positive discourse about Brexit? I think we can. I think the answer is a simple free trade deal with Europe. I think that would bring most of us together. After all, a third of those, at least, who voted Remain respect the result of the referendum. I mean, Jeffrey Archer today being interviewed in the Sunday Telegraph. Jeffrey saying, I voted Remain, but hey, you know what? I lost. Let's get on with it. This attitude, let's get on with it. And all right, you've got your Sadiq Khans and Vince Cables and the others who are fanatics for the European project, but most people just want to get on with life, want Brexit put behind us and the country to move on. So I think we can. Now, one or two of you this morning have mentioned history. We've been right back to English Civil War and all the rest of it. Just a quick thought. Yesterday, 15th of September, was Battle of Britain Day. It's the day that we commemorate in 1940 when famously Churchill went to the bunker in the west of London. There were two massive German bombing raids taking place over the capital, and Churchill asked the question, what do we have in reserve? And the answer is nothing, Prime Minister. And at that moment, every single fighter plane the Royal Air Force had was up in the sky at that moment in time. Quite extraordinary thing. And a big part of our history. There's a service going on right now in Westminster Cathedral. And yesterday, down on the Thames, on the embankment, there is the Battle of Britain Memorial. And if you're in London, it's worth going and having a look at it. And every year, veterans from the battle gather there. And yesterday, there was only one veteran there, Paul Farnes. He's 100. He shot down 8 German aircraft during the Battle of Britain. He damaged a further 11. And kind of that little bit of history is just slipping over the edge. There's almost, as he says, I'm not the only one alive, but I'm almost the only one alive. And all that upsets me on this, really, because you can't stop time moving on, is that I did get a petition together, which I put into government about 18 months ago, saying, why didn't we just honour the last of the few in some way, whether that would be a knighthood or, I don't know, a CBE or whatever it would be. And being the country that we are, we decided to do absolutely nothing. Hey, there we are. So can this country be united? When we leave the EU and the horses of the apocalypse do not come, most Remainers will deny ever voting Remain, and that will reunite Britain, says Marty on Twitter. Well, you may be right. But because these constant, as I say, dark threats, and I so well remember, back in 2000, Lord Levine, the Lord Mayor of the City of London, basically saying, if we don't join the euro, it's over. It's finished. Britain's biggest industry will be gone. And the opposite happened. It grew. And in fact, we finished up transacting more bargains, more trades in euros in London than the whole of the rest of the European capitals put together. It's what we do. We've been a trading, merchanting nation. We're actually really rather good at it. VJ is a new caller from Totteridge. Good morning to you, VJ.
Hi, morning, Nigel. I'm not a leaver or a remainer. I'm watching this from a safe distance, and I'm quite quite intrigued by the way a nation can torture its soul like this for no reason.
VJ, tell me, given the passion of this debate, where does one go to be?
I watched it very, very closely, right? Up until Ian Duncan Smith's article that you mentioned now, right? I'm going to point out to one serious flaw, and I don't have any particular side to take here. You talked about Ian Duncan Smith talking about a free trade deal. Let's go back, have a free trade deal with Europe, just like Canada, and then add services onto it, and perfect solution. Unites everyone, right?
Yes.
The one serious flaw in that argument, and that also explains why people who most often call you a 60 years plus, is the fact that you think, and most Leavers think, and even Remainers think, that you're entitled for our children and our grandchildren to live, work, play, and get themselves educated in, France, Spain, Netherlands, Italy, Austria, wherever, right? And that's not true. If you go away, a Canada-style deal is an arm's-length deal. That entire privilege is lost. And why do you think that matters to nothing?
Well, Vijay, OK, you raised the issue of healthcare, all right?
Not just healthcare, no. Living there, being able to work there, being able to study there, and being able to enjoy a continent of 600 million people. Why do you think you're entitled?
But Vijay, hang on a second. I mean, we can go and study in America. We can go and work in America. We can study in Australia. I mean, it's not terribly difficult.
It costs about $200,000 to get grad education in America. So let's not give that kind of spin. We have to understand, right? You have to say the truth to the people.
Well, you might get a scholarship to America. You might. The point I'm making is, okay, you're arguing.
Free trade deal is an arm's length deal. More than that.
But isn't that what we voted for? Wouldn't that be within the spirit of Brexit?
The ones who voted for were short-sighted enough, right? They didn't care about the 20-year-olds. Get the 16-year-old and 18-year-old, and they'll tell you how much this is valued to them. But the 60-year-old doesn't care about the need to go. But
you talk to me, Vijay, about 20-year-olds, right? I mean, how many 20-year-olds go on a gap year to Frankfurt? Like none, because they go and walk in the Andes, or they go to the Far East, or they. I mean, the world, Vijay, has become a very much smaller place, and I think for my parents' generation, for my parents' generation, Europe may have looked to be quite big and exciting back in the 70s. I mean, it's now just...
It is.
It's
Berlin
just the backyard, isn't it?
Amsterdam is more dynamic than before. Paris is more dynamic. Unless you physically separate these islands from that continent, from the White Cliffs of Dover, physically all the leavers get together, Remainers get together, the ones who don't value this, the geographical closeness, you can't avoid it. You're just stuck by geography.
Vijay, I am perfect. Look, I said this earlier on, and I'll stick with it. I'm perfectly happy with reciprocity. All right, I'm perfectly happy that our students can go to Amsterdam and Dutch students can come here. I'm happy with reciprocity, provided that it's fair. I'm not happy with reciprocity, for example, on healthcare, when we pick up an enormous burden, far more than goes the other way.
So you agree that it's better to have a similar arrangement and have a comprehensive immigration, the thorny issue of immigration addressed in a comprehensive manner. That's basically what
this is about. I mean, Vijay, what I as a lifelong committed leaver want is to be outside the political structures of the European Union. But I am perfectly happy as a neighbour living almost living in the same street. There is a little bit of water between us, but almost living in the same street. I'm perfectly happy for us to have as good a neighbourly relations with our European neighbours as we possibly can. And I think a free trade deal, I do accept your point that it's at arm's length, but at least a free trade deal would get our relationship onto a positive start.
Yeah. No, I understand. So, we can't demonize or, yes, the European parliamentarians are bureaucratic, they are inflexible, but there's no point demonizing and straining relationship just because someone has a political point to make, or Boris Johnson finds that route to number 10. His entire life and convictions could be about Remain, but he has changed it because he finds a way there, or Jacob Rees-Mogg has found a passion, or, you have something to do. It shouldn't be for those reasons. It should actually be for very logical, and it should be future-proof. You agree, right?
Yeah. Vijay, I think, in a sense, you're arguing a very positive tone. And Vijay, just one last point to you. People like me who feel so strongly about this, we love Europe. All right? We love Europe. We love the different countries, the different cultures, the different wines, the different cheeses, the different peoples. What we absolutely despise is the unelected European Commission having the power that it does. Vijay, I'm going to move on. I thank you for your call. Another new caller is Nick, who's calling from Worthing in Sussex. Good morning, Nick.
Good morning, Nigel. Nice to speak to you.
Good to speak to you. So, am I, whistling in the wind, believing that actually we can bring people together?
Well, I think we could if we had some leadership. Leadership is the key.
Yes.
And let's face it, our current leader is probably mediocre in that department, with all due respect to her. And she's tasked with taking us out of the European Union, and at heart she's a Remainer. And then the irony is, if the Labour Party make it their policy to hold a second referendum, we could end up with a situation where their leader might be tasked with keeping us in, and yet he's a Remainer.
Or a leaver. Yeah, I know, but then, Corbyn may be prepared to compromise his principle on that if he thinks he might get a shot at being Prime Minister, mightn't he?
Well, he might, but that's the problem, isn't it? At heart, leadership requires belief in what you're trying to achieve.
Leadership, Nick, real leadership is about conviction and courage, and it's about often standing up, isn't it? And not having majority support for a position, but explaining to the nation why you've got this position and inviting them to come with you. That's what real leadership is. And I have to say, we have seen it. I mean, whether you like his politics or not, Tony Blair in many ways was a leader. He would stand up, make an argument and go with it. Margaret Thatcher was a leader. She'd stand up, make an argument, go with it. There are precious few people like that around today.
There are, unfortunately. I don't think the calibre exists anymore. I think politicians are generally too worried about their short-term positions.
Is it too much about careerism, Nick, do you think?
It is exactly that.
Yeah,
exactly that.
Yeah, I fear. Well, look, I do actually rather agree with you. I think this could be done, but for Mrs May to do this and pull this off, she would have to admit that Chequers was a disaster and kind of start again, and I just don't see her doing it. Nick, I thank you for your call. Thank you for mentioning Battle of Britain Day. Mum is 96 in October, was a WAF wireless operator, says Sandy in Westcliff. Good. Well, if I've made her morning, I'm very, very pleased about that. You're listening to a Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 11:30 and time for the news with Philip Chryssikos.
Police in the northern Philippines say at least 40 people are feared to have been trapped in a landslide following a typhoon. Most of those missing are gold miners, and 7 bodies have been recovered. The storm is now hitting Hong Kong and southern China. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, is calling on his Labour Party to back another referendum on Brexit, but he's being criticised by his Labour Party colleagues. The Shadow International Trade Secretary Barry Gardner believes the idea would give Theresa May a lifeline as Prime Minister. Amazon has reportedly paid Elizabeth Hurley's vet bills after her Labrador was run over by a delivery driver. The actress's sister says Amazon initially refused to pay, but now has 9 months on. LBC weather, warm and sunny, turning cloudy across the northwest by late afternoon, a high of 24 degrees.
This is LBC.
To make sense of today's biggest stories, it's never been more important to choose your words well. The Telegraph's digital subscription gives you unlimited access to expert opinion and insight from our award-winning writers. Subscribe today and get the full newspaper downloaded to your tablet or smartphone every morning, plus 24/7 breaking news coverage wherever you are. Free for 30 days at telegraph.co.uk/free trial, then just £3 per week. Cancel anytime. The Telegraph. Words are powerful. Choose them well. Terms and conditions apply.
Tonight on Gold.
Prepare to be amazed.
It's a Gold special offer. Delivered right to your home.
Lucky baby beggar.
Part of the Sir David Jason month. Series 3 of Still Open All Hours. Tonight at 7 on the Gold TV channel. Available on Sky, Virgin and BT.
Is your money working as hard as you do? Think about it. While you're grafting away, is your money working too? No? Then it's time to Wealthify. Wealthify is the smart, easy way to start investing. Just say how you want to invest. Cautious, adventurous, somewhere in between? And let Wealthify do the rest. Then keep track of your money on the app. Easy. Isn't it time for you to Wealthify? Download the app or visit wealthify.com. With investing, capital is at risk and you could get back less than you put in.
The Dacia Sandero Stepway, from Auto Trader's best value brand. All the style of an SUV with the practicality of a family hatchback. No wonder they call it small but mighty. Test drive one today at Dacia Retail Group. Find your nearest dealer at daciaretail.co.uk.
To some, being a hero is wearing a funny mask or pulling your underpants over your trousers. But there is a better way. By going sober this October for Macmillan Cancer Support, you'll be transformed into a sober hero, proudly saying no to the booze and yes to raising money for people with cancer. Let's join together. You, me, my next door neighbour Jeff, all sober heroes, and no silly underpants, except maybe Jeff. Feel heroic for 31 days. Sign up today at gosober.org.uk.
What's the smart way to see the great outdoors? Hop on an Aer Lingus flight from London to the west of Ireland, and in 2 hours you could be starting your Wild Atlantic Way adventure with a stroll along the cliffs of the world-famous coastal route. Get ready to experience spectacular ocean views, fresh seafood, and live traditional music pouring out of cosy pubs. Fares start from just $32.99 each way as part of a return trip. Smart explores the Wild Atlantic Way. Smart flies Aer Lingus. Book now at airlingus.com. Offer subject to conditions and availability.
Mouth Ulcer Diaries, Chapter 1, The Peril of Lady Scarlet.
Oh gosh, this mouth ulcer pain is just the worst!
Luckily, Bongella's on hand to offer some assistance. 3 minutes later...
Oh, thank you, Bongella. You're my hero.
Until the next adventure, Bongella. Fight mouth ulcers in 3 minutes. Always read the label.
This is the sound of the changing of the guard, Buckingham Palace, London. Only a left away from a Holiday Inn hotel. What are you doing this weekend? It all begins at holidayinn.com.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
All this acrimony, division, backbiting, people changing their minds, increased cynicism. That's what we get from Brexit. But surely there's got to be a way through. Surely we accept the result of the referendum, we make Brexit a success, and we start to bring the country together. And if the Prime Minister could do that, she'd suddenly find the numbers in Parliament would be far less of a problem than they are right at this moment in time. Ian Duncan-Smith talks here about going for a free trade deal and starting that process in Salzburg this week when the EU leaders meet, pretty informally. And I think he's absolutely 100% right and on the money. That, I think, would be a very, very good start. I say again, it's political structures that I want us to leave. Very happy to be good next-door neighbours and friends with the rest of Europe. Want to be. Let's go to Sam, who's a new caller from Wimbledon. Good morning, Sam.
Morning, Nigel. How are you?
I am well. How do we unite the country, Sam?
Well, first off, the leaders, you got people like who call themselves leaders like Jacob Rees-Mogg, who totally double standard, where he's moving his business into Europe to make sure he's in Europe when we come out. You know, if you lead by example, you want to come out. Yourself, I think you're still an MEP. Is that correct?
It is.
Right. So why don't you leave your position in Europe, come out, lead by example. If we got leaders who are saying, yes, we want to do this, we're passionate about what we're doing, show us some leadership.
Okay.
Come out of Europe.
Okay. Well, Sam. Firstly, on Jacob, I mean, you know, he runs an investment company, and you know he's criticised for buying shares in Vietnam or whatever it is. So I'm just not going to get involved into a complex business argument with Jacob. As far as I'm concerned, well, of course, Sam, 19 years ago,
he recently moved a part of the business into Europe. Since Brexit.
if you're
and that's securing his position in Europe. When you come out.
If you're running a global investment company, you know, for all I know, he's got offices all over the world. I don't know. I'm not going to comment on that. But as far as I'm concerned, well, a lot of people said to me 19 years ago, why on earth are you here? And if you don't believe in the European project, why have you taken up your position? And this was a thought-through strategy that we would go there and we would use our experience to bring the European institutions, the Parliament in particular, to a broader audience. And I think I've been quite successful with that. If I thought, Sam, going over there tomorrow and collecting my cards and walking out would help, I'd be only too happy to do so. I have to say, going back and
but you keep saying you don't agree with the you like Europe, but it's the political part of Europe that you want to leave.
Yes,
but you're still a part of it.
Well, I am still a part of it, Sam, and I still have a voice.
So why don't you leave? That's my question to you. Why don't you leave? Because
I cannot wait. I cannot wait not to be an MEP. I've done my time. the journey back and forth to Strasbourg is once a month is absolute murder. But Sam, if I thought walking out tomorrow would help, I would. I promise you. But at the moment, I'm still a group leader. I've still got seat number 20. Mr. Juncker's got seat number 21, and I'm going to be there until we leave. And when we do leave, I'll walk out, Sam, and I will have been the turkey that voted for Christmas. Now, you'll notice again today on the news, weather is really, really dominant. Not British weather, but global weather. Hong Kong and southern China facing a severe test from Typhoon Mangkhut. And people are being told there are possible disasters to come. So that is a typhoon. US President Donald Trump has declared a disaster in North Carolina, where a storm has killed 11 people in mid-warnings. That the worst is yet to come. Storm Florence is projected to bring catastrophic flooding. So I get a bit confused. I don't know about you folks. Maybe it's just me being stupid. But I'm not sure I understand the difference between hurricanes, typhoons, cyclones. They're hurricanes in America, but there's a different word whenever it's in the Far East. Listen, I want to learn more. I'm going to go to Chris Bell, forecaster at WeatherQuest. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Nigel.
Right, first off, terminology. What is the difference between hurricane and a typhoon? Because looking at the television pictures, they seem very similar.
Yeah, there's almost no difference at all. In fact, they're the same thing from a meteorological perspective. Hurricanes happen we name them hurricanes in the Atlantic Ocean and in the Eastern Pacific Ocean. If they're in the Western Pacific Ocean, we call them typhoons, and if they're in the Indian Ocean, they're generally called tropical cyclones.
So this is purely about geography?
It is, yes. They're all different, I should say, from what you might hear someone call a tornado or a twister, which is a much smaller phenomenon that happens underneath a thunderstorm. But these are big, large storms that happen over the tropical oceans of the world that can be hundreds of miles wide. Okay, right. And we're seeing, as I say, these two storms are really very, very high up our news agenda. In terms of severity, how do these storms rate? Yeah, well, I mean, so first to start with Florence in the Atlantic, which has now made landfall and is causing all the very heavy rains. The sort of real devastating part of that storm hasn't really been the wind, it's been more the storm surge, so the water that's been pushed from the ocean onto the coastal parts, and then all of the rainfall that's falling after that, which parts of North Carolina and South Carolina have seen 20 to 30 inches of rain, and to put that in perspective, that's about what we get for a whole year in southeastern parts of England, and they've gotten that in just a few days. So you've got all the storm surge and then you've got all the rain, so obviously that gives a lot of flooding and to places in North Carolina and risk to life as well.
No, okay. Well, this every single year we have these storms. Are they getting more severe, or is this just the normal pattern we've come to expect? Yeah,
there's a lot of research going on that in the meteorological and climatological communities, and there's no real significant, consensus on it yet, but the kind of findings so far suggest that in actuality these storms may be becoming less frequent, but more severe when they happen. And just to give you a very quick background on why that might be the case is that in a world that's going to warm, the oceans in the northern part of the Atlantic and Pacific Ocean, so the sort of getting closer to the poles, will warm a little bit more than the tropics will, and there'll be less contrast in temperature, and these storms really thrive off of a contrast in the very warm tropics and the cooler air around the poles. And so if there's less contrast, there might be less need for them, but the warmer it is, the stronger they can be. So it's a bit of a complex relationship, really. Yeah, and of course it's not a given that the world's going to get warmer, is it? Well, the general consensus from climatologists would suggest it is. So we are headed that way, it looks like. In terms of how quickly that happens and in who warms the most, there's still some question marks, but the very basics in physics would suggest that you're trapping more radiation in the atmosphere, and that will lead to some sort of increase in energy, and that energy is probably going to be manifested in terms of temperature. And I did see a story that there were some big winds coming to the West Country on Tuesday of this week. And that's right.
Quick thought on that.
Yeah, so that's the remnants of ex-Hurricane Helene, which has been out in the Atlantic as well. The remnant low pressure associated with that's going to travel right over Ireland tomorrow afternoon and evening, so Monday afternoon and evening, bringing some gale force winds to southern parts of Ireland and up the Irish coast of Britain, it looks like, as we go through Monday evening and Monday night. So we could see some gusts in order of sort of 60 to 70 miles an hour, and it's going to stay pretty windy in northwest Scotland into the middle of the week as well.
And finally, Chris, Sunday afternoon coming up, and I'm wondering, do I now pack the barbecue away in the garage?
Actually, Nigel, you might enjoy some warmer weather because of this ex-Hurricane Helene that's going up. And so we're looking at temperatures in southeastern parts of England over the next few days into the low to mid-20s. So we could be as high as 25, 26 degrees even. So maybe leave it out this week, and then after that...
Okay, all right. Okay. Thank you very much indeed. That was Chris Bell, forecaster at WeatherQuest. So there we are. I've learnt something. You know, hurricanes, tropical cyclones, typhoons, and you hear this terminology. I wonder whether, like me, you've thought, I wonder what the difference is between them. I've certainly wondered, time and again. The answer is nothing. They're all exactly the same. It's just a question of what geographical part of the world they are in terms of what name they're called. Right, let's get back to uniting the country. Can it be done? Marion is calling from Finchley. Good morning, Marion.
Nigel, I certainly think it can be done. I like the idea of what Mrs May should say in Salzburg, and Mrs May could make herself a very great British Prime Minister by chucking checkers and following the example of her great woman predecessor, Margaret Thatcher, who, when she found the poll tax was so unpopular, chucked that. And Mrs May could make herself very great by doing that, chucking checkers.
Yeah, people forget, Marion, actually. They forget that she did chuck the poll tax, didn't she?
Yes.
She did. And in the end, of course, it wasn't the poll tax that brought Margaret Thatcher down. It was divisions over guess what subject? Divisions over Europe, wasn't it, that caused all the difficulty. Yeah. So you firmly believe, then, it's not too late for Mrs May. She can still do this.
I believe it's not, and I think it's a problem for a Prime Minister to change tack completely, but as I say, Margaret Thatcher did it, and she's regarded as a very great Prime Minister, whatever views are taken of her policies. I happen to live in her constituency and met her a number of times, and thought she was a fantastic Prime Minister. I know lots of people take an opposite view, but nevertheless, she got rid of the poll tax when people said, no, we don't want it. And we're all saying, all of us leavers and quite a lot of remainers are saying, chuck checkers.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more, Marion. Checkers must be chucked, and it's not going to get a majority in the House of Commons anyway, in my view. If she sticks with checkers, it'll be the end of her. But maybe Marion from Finchley is right. If she really, really does, and Mrs Thatcher did on the poll tax, she could come out of this as a great, popular Prime Minister. The fourth plinth in Trafalgar Square will be Theresa May. Who's to say? You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC, and it's now 11:45.
Coming up at 12 on LBC, Majid Nouaz.
Hungarian leader Viktor Orban may be plotting a new European alliance that would be the continent's most powerful far-right movement in decades. Are you worried about the return of a dark far-right shadow over Europe?
Majid Nouaz on LBC.
Global's Make Some Noise Day returns on Friday the 5th of October. LBC's charity to help make some noise for those who don't get heard. This year we want to help even more charities, such as the Lily Foundation. Here's Louise, whose 2-year-old son Freddie has been helped by the organisation.
No parent goes on to have a child thinking one day they're going to lose them. The Lily Foundation are trying to do everything they can to make sure that doesn't happen.
Right now you can get involved and help change lives by donating at lbc.co.uk.
Little Red Riding Hood has been trying to sell her grandma's home for some time now, but the estate agent's shiny, sharp teeth have left her with sweat on her brow.
Trust me, darling, I just want what's best for you, hence the added fees.
However, she spoke to the friendly team at Property Rescue, who cut out the middleman and guaranteed a sale in as little as 48 hours with no fees whatsoever. Fast forward to living happily ever after. Visit propertyrescue.co.uk. Property Rescue. Fast forward to sold.
In cinemas this Wednesday, Mile 22 is a lean and mean action movie.
This is an Overwatch operation.
Loaded with edge-of-your-seat action.
You feeling calm, Alice?
Not even a little. Are you?
I'm totally calm.
That's because you're mentally unstable.
Thank you.
Mark Wahlberg is back to his all-action best.
You're chaos. I think I might be worse.
We can do this all day. Does your wife know you think about me all day?
Mile 22. Boom. In cinemas Wednesday.
Are you ready?
Certificate 18.
It's here, but not for long. Existing and new customers can get Sky's best ever offer on Sky Sports and Entertainment, both in stunning HD. Enjoy over 500 epic live football games and indulge in award-winning shows on Sky Atlantic, all for only £40 a month, saving you over £350. But this offer won't last long. Search sky.com. £20 standard setup for new Sky TV customers. Kit loaned at no cost. New 18-month minimum terms requires HDTV. Saving based on 18-month minimum contract versus £64 per month out of contract.
The Dacia Sandero Stepway, from Auto Trader's best value brand. All the style of an SUV with the practicality of a family hatchback. No wonder they call it small but mighty. Test drive one today at Dacia Retail Group. Find your nearest dealer at daciaretail.co.uk.
To make sense of today's biggest stories, it's never been more important to choose your words well. The Telegraph's digital subscription gives you unlimited access to expert opinion and insight from our award-winning writers. Subscribe today and get the full newspaper downloaded to your tablet or smartphone every morning, plus 24/7 breaking news coverage wherever you are. Free for 30 days at telegraph.co.uk/free trial, then just £3 per week. Cancel anytime. The Telegraph. Words are powerful. Choose them well. Terms and conditions apply.
Block management. Two very simple words. But what do they actually mean? Well, there's budget approval for starters, then service charge invoices, health and safety paperwork, cleaning, gardening, maintenance, inspections, contracts, insurance, emergency call-outs, and a whole lot more besides.
So for complete block management solutions, just remember 3 simple letters: ABC. ABC Estates will take care of all your day-to-day management, leaving you as happy as Larry. See abcestates.co.uk or call 0800 888 6688.
How'd you get your car service at a national chain you can depend on without paying main dealer prices? Simple. Bring it to QuickFit. We've got over 500 service centres across the UK and there's slots available to book right now. So head down to your local QuickFit today or visit quickfit.com to book online and drive away happy.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
Well, Ian Duncan-Smith today says the Prime Minister, all she's got to do, she ditches Chequers, she goes to Salzburg this week, she meets the other heads of all the countries that are going to be there, and she says we're going to go for a Canada-style trade deal. They say, do you know what? Thank goodness, that ends all this nonsense. Let's have a trade deal, and it actually unites the country. I think there's something in it. I think it's got some merit, bringing people together. Decorator Dave here, Nigel. I've popped out for a bit and left your show on for the dog. I think he finds your voice relaxing. Well, there you are. Unity. How about a word of gratitude to the many airmen and pilots from Europe, in particular the Polish squadron, who fought with true heroism in the air and without whom the Battle of Britain may have gone the other way, Ross in Aberdeen. Yes, Ross, absolutely there were. And not only that, Czech pilots. In fact, I was in Prague last year. I was amazed to see a Spitfire cafe. So I went in, and it was full of memorabilia about Czech Battle of Britain Spitfire pilots. So, yes, you're absolutely right. People from all over Europe, and 1 or 2 Americans too, Canadians, coming to the UK to help fight against this terrible tyranny that wanted to take over the whole of the rest of Europe. Paul is a new caller from Formby. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, Mr. Farage.
So, can we unify people, and would a free trade deal be a start?
I think the unifying people needs to be giving the people the idea that Westminster is somehow in control, and perhaps laying out a free trade deal is a way to do it. But how would you see that being implemented? Would you see that being implemented in time for March? During the transition period, or how long?
Well, it's fascinating, Paul, isn't it? If you ask a bureaucrat how long it takes to sort a deal out, they'll tell you 10 years. Cameron said it would take 10 years. You ask a businessman or a businesswoman how long it takes to thrash something out, they say, well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll sit at this desk and we'll have sandwiches and cups of tea brought in, and we'll sort it out. When there are models like Canada there on the table already, the answer is it can't happen overnight, Paul, but it shouldn't need to take too long.
Well, the Canada model that you mentioned was derived up by bureaucrats, as a free trade deal would be.
Yes.
Because it's not, ironically, it's not countries that trade, it's companies, but the free trade deal is arranged between countries.
You're right. You're right.
And that took 10 years.
Of course. And the longer it takes, the better, because everyone gets paid, it's jobs for the boys, and it's great.
Well, it's not a long... Yeah.
The difference is, Paul...
About politicians like you. Hold on, cynically about
Paul, the difference
like
is...
yourself.
The difference
What
is...
happens to the companies that are trading in this limbo period?
Yeah, well, the difference...
For example, you
Paul,
mentioned...
Paul, there wouldn't be a limbo period, because already, right now, we're on exactly the same system as the rest of Europe. And divergence would happen over time. So for us to do this is a very quick thing to do, because there are no disputes about undercutting. There are no disputes about different agricultural methods, because at the minute it's all the same. So the argument that it can be done incredibly quickly, I think, holds true.
So on your point about agricultural methods, and you mentioned that we'd respect each other's standards as part of the free trade deal. So are you then advocating the Canadian model, which is that British farmers should split their fields and their livestock dependent on where they intend to sell them, which is exactly what happens in Canadian farms?
I know it is, and they've also got a very complex agricultural relationship with the USA as well, which Trump has made big play of. Paul, the concept that you organise a free trade deal where, of course, you have to respect each other's standards and all the rest of it, but you're not in, ultimately, full regulatory alignment. I think it's something that would deal with some of the biggest criticisms from Remainers, which is their concern about tariff, and maybe that concern's overstated, but there is a concern about tariff, and it would satisfy Leavers in that we would get back control of our borders.
Well, the problem here is that you're advocating this, but you've never implemented policy. So
and who in government has ever implemented policy before? In fact, who in government has ever had a job before? That's the way, I'm afraid, Paul, our system works, isn't it?
Well, no, because the current government, as much as I'm not a particular fan of it, is stuffed with people who've implemented policy. You're getting this idea from IDS. IDS implemented universal credit. Now, you can argue how well that went, but at least he was responsible for it.
Paul, I'm not getting this idea from IDS. I favoured this idea since 1993. I've stood on successive elections arguing for this, but I'm picking up Ian Duncan Smith's comments today and saying, hey, isn't it good that actually there are people who want... I mean, Paul, let me ask you a question. Would you like to see this country more united behind the Brexit process?
I would like to see it more united behind the representative democracy process, which is how this country has formulated.
So you don't respect? So you don't respect the referendum result?
No, actually, as it happens, I do. But then there's a reason there's only been 3 referendums in the UK's history, right? 2 of which are on the EU, and I'll be impressed if you know what the third was.
Oh, it was the ridiculous proposal to move us onto a voting system that couldn't be explained in a sentence.
There's only been 3, and that is because we have a representative democracy. And when you
one Paul that has failed us and failed us terribly.
So what are you proposing then? That we do everything by referenda?
I tell you what, I like direct democracy. I like the way Switzerland organises itself. I wouldn't want us to have a referendum once a week, but I do think there are times when we, the people, need to have the power to go over and above our elected representatives if they're not doing a proper job. Paul, I'm going to move on. Well, I think, much of today has been dominated, of course, by division. And let's listen again to Sadiq Khan on LBC after the referendum in 2016.
I think the problem for those of us who are saying to the British public there should be a second referendum, it will lead to even more cynicism. It will lead to the British public saying, hold on a sec, these were the rules of the game, we voted in record numbers, and now you're ignoring us.
Yeah, and there he was, and go to lbc.co.uk to remind yourself of that. And then this morning, he's written an article in The Observer, all over the front page, give Britain a new referendum. Here was his response to that.
I accept the verdict of the British public. What I'm not saying is we should have a rerun. What I'm not saying is we should have referendums all the time. What I am saying is, bearing in mind the politicians have failed, the public should take back control and have a say on the outcome of those negotiations.
So it's not a second referendum, it's a fresh referendum. It's a new look. I mean, goodness sake, they must think we were born yesterday. They really, really must. Right, now, let's go. We've got time for one more call. Going to go to Tim, who I've spoken to before, in Evesham in Worcestershire. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning, Nigel. Lovely to speak to you again. I just want to let my father speak to you from the grave. He was a Battle of Britain pilot, shot down, badly burnt, riddled with shrapnel. My mum was a WAF in the Battle of Britain. The Second World War destroyed his belief in politics, apart from Winston Churchill, obviously. And since the war, since Lord Cropthorne, who is our near neighbour, Michael Spicer, an arch Brexiteer and mentor of Daniel Hannan, he lost respect for the politicians. They start wars. They send young people to war. He said, before the war, you met a politician, you raised your hat. After the war, you cross the street to the other side to miss him.
Well, Tim, you know, we talk about respect for politicians. I mean, what Sadiq Khan has done, this dramatic turnabout on the referendum is the kind of thing that makes people very, very cynical. Do you think, just got a few seconds left, Tim, do you think the country can be united around Brexit?
I think it should be. I've got my doubts as to whether it will be, because there's a split between the young and the old. The young don't have the experience of badness. And what amazes me is why the young on the continent are for getting out of Europe.
I know.
I
know, Tim. In Italy, the old people want to keep things as they are. The young want revolution.
It must be the unemployment in the young on the continent.
It's called the Euro, Tim, and we didn't join it, thank goodness. If we had joined it, the youth in Britain would be against it too. Thank you, everybody. You've been listening to the Nigel Farage Show. I'm back tomorrow evening from 6 o'clock. Coming up at 3. Up next, it's Majid Nawaz.
Thank you, Nigel.
Sorry.
That's all right.
I got lost there.
Nice time, by the way. Coming up, the Home Office has rejected a flesh claim against its decision to deport the man behind the largest bank fraud in UK history. Former UBS trader Kweku Adebole, the Ghanaian, has been here since he was 4 years old. Is this hostile